Hello, everyone. This is Wills with the Why Not Foundation here in the great state of Georgia. I wanted to hop on here real quick. I recently ran my first half marathon and was really inspired to share a word that I really think is very valuable and pertinent to you, the life that you are going through right now, regardless of what your journey looks like, and ultimately where you want to be long term with your life journey. And the word and phrase that really came to my mind during my training, during my run, and after the fact that I want to share with you all is the idea of the art of endurance. And to start, I really want to focus on answering this first question of what is endurance? For me, endurance really means the willingness to accept a challenge, understanding that I am not going to achieve whatever I am seeking in the short term, but rather my reward will come in the long term, which means I have to endure. I have to be willing to say, this is difficult. I choose to wake up every day and address whatever the challenge is, to endure, um, to be willing to be uncomfortable. So that is what endurance means to me. My question to you is, what does endurance mean to you? Now that you've answered that question of what does endurance mean to you, now I want to focus on the question of, do I have endurance? When I was running my half marathon, I had to have endurance. I had to build up within my body the muscle memory, the knowledge of how to run a long distance race. So that way, the energy that I had at the start was equal, if not greater, to the energy that I would have in the middle. And ultimately, at the end of the race, when I came across the finish line, my goal was to not only have the same amount of energy that I had maintained through the race, but ultimately to have the most energy possible to be able to put me through that final stretch of the couple miles that I had left to finish my race. Likewise, if you have endurance, if you have endurance, look at your life, look at what you're going through. Are you willing to go through difficult circumstances, regardless of whether or not you know the answers, and wake up every day with the same amount of fervor and the same amount of determination to temporarily go through challenges, not knowing what they look like, to ultimately get to the finish line of where you want to be. For some of you, that might be getting on the transplant list. For some of you, it might be learning to navigate the world with your transplanted organ for the first time. Or maybe you've received an organ before, and maybe this is your second or third transplant that you've received, and you have had to endure through a long stretch of time multiple procedures, multiple medical procedures, multiple um, lab draws, challenging psychological impacts that may come along with the transplant process. Whatever it is, you are here today because you made a choice. It was on you to look at the situation that you had in front of you. And while you might not have known what the end would be, you ultimately knew where you wanted to be, and you were willing to wake up every day and endure to get to where you are. So, if you have endurance, that's what it looks like. And finally, the last question is that I want to really address is, how do I endure? Maybe you've listened to me define endurance. Maybe you've listened to me say, you know, what does it look like to have endurance? Why is it important? But ultimately, the biggest question that I would have for you is, how do you endure? How do you go through the process of, say, learning you are an organ failure to being placed on the transplant waiting list for some people 5, 10 plus years, if not more, waiting for a transplanted organ? How do you do it? I can give you some really complex answers. I can beat around the bush on how you can endure and give you a 10-step plan, but that's not what you need. That's not what you want. That's not what you're seeking. You're seeking a brief answer. And the short answer to how do I endure is simply that you make the choice. That you make the choice even when you don't have all the answers, even when there's a lot of questions. I think about when I had to choose to endure the medical challenges that led to me having to move back to the state of Georgia. I didn't want to leave where I was. I loved where I was. I loved what I was doing. I had a lot of friends. But at the end of the day, I knew that for where I wanted to be long term, to get across the finish line of where I wanted to be, it necessitated me being uncomfortable. Maybe you're in the same boat. Maybe you're looking at a diagnosis right now. Maybe you're looking at something and you don't have all the answers, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, the willingness to endure, the willingness to embrace the challenge and go full head of steam, full steam ahead, to commit to saying, I don't know what is around the corner, but I'm going to give it everything I have. That is what it ultimately looks like to endure. And that is what I would challenge you to do today. So, in conclusion, talking about endurance, what is endurance? It's simply just the willingness to go through a situation that is difficult, not knowing what you might be going through, but ultimately knowing where you want to be and being willing to wake up every day to make small steps that ultimately lead to the big goal of where your finish line is. For me, it was my race. For you, it might be a transplant. For you, it might be something else. Whatever it is, seek it. Never quit. Question of, do I have endurance? I don't know. Do you? Do you wake up every day with the same amount of fervor to achieve the goal that you have and continuously make that decision on a daily basis? If so, you, my friend, have endurance. And finally, how do I endure? You simply endure by choosing to be a victor over your circumstances rather than a victim. So that is just a little bit of what I wanted to share with you all about the art of endurance. Again, I really enjoyed my race, and I know that in many ways we're all on our own race in life. We're all at a different pace. We all have different things that we want to achieve and places we want to go. And you might be sitting there today wondering, I know where I want to be, I just don't know how to get there. That's okay. Just endure. Wake up every day. Be willing to say, I can do this, even if you don't believe it. If you don't believe it, don't say, I can do this. Say, I'm choosing, in spite of my circumstances, to still push on. And that words of why not? Edward says it all the time. Don't ask why me, ask why not me. So that's what I would leave with you all today. Again, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Hope that you take this to heart. And until the next video, see you later.